Yeah.
When I was 12 years old, I ended up on a 4-hour plane ride by myself, completely covered in bandages. My name is Emily Grace Schultz. I was born in Colorado and moved to North Carolina at the age of 6. Shortly after, my grandparents followed, and every other summer we would go back to Colorado to visit my cousins. The summer I was 12, I flew to Colorado with my grandparents to spend a few weeks in the mountains. The last week we were there, we found an alpine slide, which is basically just a concrete slide down the face of a mountain. They gave us these scooters with only a brake to ride down on. The sides of the concrete were painted red or green, depending on whether you need to brake or not. As they were about to close, my cousin and I went down for one more ride. As we neared the last turn, the red paint in the back of my cousin's head fought for attention in my brain. My competitive nature ran out, and I let go of the brake. The next thing I knew, I was sliding down the concrete slide with the scooter on top of my head. My cousins helped me to urgent care on site, and the doctors there wrapped my entire right arm and leg in bandages. The next few days, I spent inside watching movies and playing games with my cousins. I boarded the plane home about a week later in even more pain and still covered in bandages. My grandparents were staying for a few more days, so I flew home by myself for the first time. After I landed, my mom took a look at my injuries, and we realized they were much worse than we originally thought. At the time, I was a competitive swimmer and ended up missing a few weeks of competition. I think this story shows 3 very important things about me. I love to travel, I am extremely competitive, and I'm very injury prone. As a few of you know, my family travels often. It's one of the reasons that my sister and I switched to homeschooling. I have yet to find a place that I don't enjoy just wandering around with no purpose other than to admire creation. Each place we discover opens my eyes to new things. I love learning about different cultures and experiences. Everyone lives a different life, and when I travel, I feel like I get to see a glimpse of someone else's view. Now, some people think that because I grew up with only a sister, I grew up in a world of only princesses and tea parties. Don't get me wrong, I did grow up with that. However, I also grew up playing every sport possible and turning even COVID into a competition. The spring of 2020 brought to the world a new kind of life. For my family, it brought a way to compete. That spring, my family started what will forever be known to us as the Quarantine Classic. Every night, we chose a different game and kept track of how many wins each person received. We played board games, darts, learned how to throw throwing stars and knives, and even turned the stock market into a competition. But don't ask me who won that. Lastly, anyone who has ever met me knows that I'm injured 90% of the time. I have broken my collarbone, my arm, both legs, most of my fingers, my toe, torn my MCL, and had 2 severe concussions. Not to mention the multiple sprained ankles and thumbs I've received from sports. I have yet to play an entire season of middle or varsity sports without ending up on the bench with an injury at some point. At the same time, I don't think I would be the person I am today without having had to sit on the bench as much as I have. Sitting on the bench has balanced my competitive side by teaching me that there is another side to sports. I have learned that just being there for my teammates is just as important as playing. In closing, I want to spend my life exploring every corner of the world. I think of pretty much everything as a competition, and most of my teammates have begged me at some point to wrap myself in bubble wrap.